Hello there, and welcome to Murder Most British. I'm Zach.
Hey guys, I'm Rachel.
Yeah, here we are again. We're back.
Every week.
Ready for another one.
We love it. We hope you guys do too.
Well, this is a sort of a historical one.
So this is an old one, is it?
Yeah, we're going back a little ways.
Yeah. How far back are we going?
1800s?
Proper history, this is.
Yeah. But it does have some legal ramifications and stuff as well. It shows how things were a little bit different with the law and whatnot, but yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine
excited.
back in the 1800s it would have been so much different compared to now.
Especially with class and money.
Well, we dedicate this episode to our friend Al, who we lost just over a year ago. Al was an English gentleman in every sense of the word. He loved his sports shooting, the countryside and good company. We miss his cheeky little smile, his warmth and his friendship.
And a few beers, yeah.
Now whiskey.
Yeah, going up to the club. Yeah. Well, I think he would love this one because it's got it all. It's got class, money, a bit of fraud, and some murder thrown in as well. But before we begin, a small request from us.
Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Murder Most British and on Facebook at MMB Podcast. We'd appreciate it.
Yeah, and then if you've got Discord, join us in the public crypto chat where we can talk cases, share theories, and read the latest news from the archive.
Your support really helps the archive grow and ensures no story is ever forgotten.
Okay, so let's get to the case.
The shot came from somewhere inside the wood. Just one, clean, final, and swallowed almost at once by the mist. On the slopes below Ardlamont House, the servants paused in their work listening. It was a morning like any other in the Scottish shooting season, until two men returned from the trees, but one did not.
In the long twilight of the 19th century, when Britain's air seemed thick with coal smoke, a child was born whose life would bridge two stations. Alfred John Monson, born in 1859, was the son of Reverend Thomas John Monson, a clergyman of the Church of England, and Caroline Isabella Monckton, daughter of George Edmund Milnes Monckton Arundel, the 5th Viscount Galway. That is a mouthful.
Bit of a mouthful for you.
Jeez, man, that just stinks of money and.
Yeah, very much so.
You just hear a name like that, you're like, that's money. I can see it already. So John's childhood stood between pulpits and privilege, a house of sermons and second sons.
His father's living offered respect but little wealth. His mother's lineage promised refinement without coin. From this half-world of gentility without means, Monson inherited both polish and hunger. By 20, he was a gentleman by habit, but not by fortune.
In 1881, he married Agnes Maud Day, joining affection to the discipline of appearances. Children followed, and with them the weight of respectability. Tudors lived in genteel poverty, their education a form of currency, their manners their last defence.
In Victorian households, the tutor occupied an ambiguous station, educated among gentlemen, yet never of them. He shared their manners, but not their inheritance, their tables, but not their blood. In every polished phrase and pressed cuff lay the quiet labour of concealment, the effort of appearing to belong. For men, like Monson, dignity was performance, and failure meant descent. From guest to hireling, from refinement to redundancy, beneath civility's surface, that anxiety hummed like a distant wire.
By the early 1890s, Monson's path led to the Hambro family of the Isle of Wight, where he was engaged as tutor to Windsor Dudley Cecil Hambro, born in 1873. It was a position of trust and proximity, a man of modest means advising an heir to a considerable fortune.
Outside these cultivated rooms, Britain was changing. The industrial south choked on soot, while in the Highlands, vast estates offered a cleaner illusion, silence, sport, and the echo of older hierarchies. For the wealthy, it was recreation. For those who served them, a ladder. When the opportunity came to lease Ardlamont House near Kames in Argyll, Monson took it.
Locals said Ardlamont stood where the land itself seemed restless, a headland of shifting mist and sudden squalls where sea and sky met without horizon. Its windows faced the firth like unblinking eyes. Visitors spoke of the way sound traveled strangely here, footsteps doubling back, doors sighing when no wind stirred.
The house, built at about 1820, rose from the headland like a grey sentinel above the sea. The wind carried salt through its corridors. The floors whispered in the night. In the first week of August of 1893, around the 2nd, Monson brought his wife, children, and young pupil north to occupy Ardlamont for the shooting season.
What he found there was solitude, the kind that unsettles. The house looked down upon the Firth of Clyde, its lawns giving way to forests of pine. Servants spoke of the air's damp chill, the mists that never quite lifted. It was a place built for leisure, but steeped in isolation.
By midsummer, the household had settled into its pattern. Windsor Hambro, 19 and impressionable, relied upon his tutor not only for lessons but for the etiquette and small economies of adulthood. Monson managed his accounts and correspondence, roles that placed him near both the youth's confidence and his inheritance.
Another guest soon arrived, Edward Scott, described variously as an acquaintance or associate of Monson, a man of middle years and untroubled manners. He joined their hunts, his presence changing the household's chemistry. The three men became a small fraternity of sport and habit. Yeah, just having the boys go out, do some shooting, do some drinking. Hopefully not at the same time. That'd be dangerous.
I mean, one or two maybe, not so many. The Ardlamont estate itself was both setting and accomplice. To the east, dense woodland opened toward the sea. Paths run through heather and fir. A fence marked the edge of tillable ground. Beyond it, the mist thickened, swallowing sound. Gunfire there echoed strangely, contained and directionless.
Each morning began before 8. The metallic scrape of cartridges, the soft slide of oil and cloth. The dogs grew restless as the guns were carried out. Servants later remembered that Monson's discipline was precise, his routine unwavering, discipline kind of like a military man, of everything perfect.
Well, yet in that precision lay a stillness that pricked at the nerves. Letters were written to London, some personal, some touching on financial matters. There were polite instructions about insurance and investment, the sort of things that, in another context, might seem innocent.
By early August, the highlands were veiled in weather that blurred every outline. The fog drifted across the moor and field, folding the house inside itself. Conversations grew quieter. To the servants, it seemed as if the air itself listened.
On the night of August the 9th, the house dined early. Rain traced the windows. Within the lamp-lit rooms, silver glinted and shadows pooled. Monson and his pupils spoke little. The servants retired to the back halls, where even laughter felt misplaced.
So morning came, the 10th of August, and the sky was a low grey dome, the sea colourless. Breakfast was served before 8, guns were brought down, cartridges counted. The three men, Monson, Hambro, and Scott, stepped from the doorway into the fog.
They walked east, towards the familiar belt of trees 360 yards from the house, a place long used for practice shooting. The mist thickened behind them, erasing their outlines until only sound remained. Boots on wet grass, then nothing.
The servants at the window watched until the shapes dissolved completely, the grass misting with their breath. After that, Ardlamont fell quiet again. The morning stretched, pale and endless, waiting for a sound it did not yet know to fear. In that stillness, even the clock seemed hesitant, marking time toward an hour that would divide memory from innocence. Ardlamont waited, and the mist did not lift.
The first sound was ordinary, a single gunshot carried across the damp August air. The air hung heavy with sea damp and peat. Even sound seemed to move slowly there, absorbed by the sodden ground and the walls of trees. The gun's echo rolled once across the moor and died.
Beyond the windows, the horizon was a sheet of gray without edge, a place where one could vanish as easily as breath on glass. At Ardlamont, such noise belonged to the routine of morning. The servants barely paused. It was the shooting season, and the sharp echo of rifles often rippled through the misted woods beyond the house.
Not long before, the three had walked out toward the eastern path, bound for the trees where they often practiced. From the windows, the housemaids had watched their shapes dissolve into the haze. Now, only two returned.
Through the thinning fog came Monson and Scott, hurrying across the slope that led up to the lodge. Their boots were heavy with mud. Their coats clung wetly to their shoulders. When they reached the steps, the butler opened the door, expecting some brief commotion, a twisted ankle perhaps, or a request for bandages. Instead, Monson's voice came steady and rehearsed. "Mr. Hambro has met with an accident," he said. "His gun went off while he was climbing the fence."
You'd expect that gun to be shooting into the air then.
Well, it depends on how you'd land and the way the gun's, pointed.
And they didn't say that he fell while he was climbing the fence.
Yeah. He was trying to climb the fence, fell over, gun went off, whoops, accident.
Sure. We shall see. Well, the servants remembered the phrasing, precise, almost official. His stillness unsettled them more than the panic might have done. In his voice there was no tremor, only an echo of something rehearsed. The careful diction of a man who had already told his story once before, if only to himself.
Well, he asked for water and cloths, then went directly to the gun room. There, he and Scott began cleaning the weapons. The scrape of metal against rod carrying down the corridor. The smell of oil and burnt powder thickened the air. It was a practiced ritual, order restored after chaos. Hey man, just going to clean the guns. Right after. Hey man, he got shot. We're just going to go clean the guns real fast.
Was that something that they always did?
I don't know. Probably. Well, after we get done shooting, we got to go back in and clean the guns. But it seems kind of weird. It's like, oh boy, got shot out there.
Yeah, I mean, surely, why didn't you carry him back for a start? Why did you'd bring him back, wouldn't you? Carrying him back. Just leave him out there.
Yeah. Crime scene, but.
Well, yeah, true.
But it was an accident. It's not a crime. Wait, it's not a crime scene. No.
Not in their view. Well, outside, the woods stood silent. The mist had grown dense again, muffling even the cry of the birds. Somewhere among those trees lay the young heir, though none of them in the house yet knew the truth of it.
At Monson's instruction, the butler dispatched a messenger to fetch the local surgeon from, and I'm sorry if I get this wrong, Bruick. Yes, I nailed it right there.
These tricky words.
Nailed it. No one sent for the police. That's strange. To those below stairs, it seems only misfortune. A mishap of sport. It happens,
Yeah, it happens, but very odd. Well, when the groom returned from the wood, he brought the first certainty of death. He had followed Monson's directions precisely. At the fence beyond the lower path, there he found Hambro laying face down on the grass. One arm trapped beneath his body, the head was blooded, the cap lay a few feet away, and the gun had fallen muzzle first into the earth.
Muzzle first. Weird. Well, he covered the face with his coat and went back for help. Together with two stablemen, he bore the body on a wooden shutter, wrapped in a tartan rug already darkened by rain. As they passed through the courtyard, the maids turned away from the windows and drew the blinds.
Inside the house, a strained quiet took hold. Monson ordered the body laid in the gun room, where the smell of oil still hung. He sent another note, this time a telegram, to the Hambro family in England. A short message reporting accidental discharge while shooting.
Well, by late afternoon, word reached the nearest town, and from there, the local fiscal's office. A single official arrived before dusk, his carriage rattling up the drive through the mist. The house was composed, the narrative complete. Monson repeated his explanation, the fence, the fall, the accidental firing, and the visitor found nothing to contest. Death by misadventure was recorded and no post-mortem examination was ordered. What a phrase, death by misadventure.
Well, as night closed over Ardlamont, the servants lit lamps in the hall and bolted the doors. Rain swept over the headland. The woods beyond vanished into the dark. Within the gun room, the air was heavy with salt and iron. Somewhere in the distance, the sea broke against rock. A steady rhythm that masked the silence of a house that had accepted, for now, an accident as truth.
By the time the darkness fell, Ardlamont was sealed against the weather. Lamps burned low in the corridors. Rain ran down the windows in steady streams. The sea's dull roar carried across the fields, a rhythm too steady to be comfort.
The gun room, once bright with morning's routine, had become a kind of chapel. The body of Windsor Hambra lay on a trestle table covered by a rug and sheet. Beneath the fabric, the outline was unmistakably slight, a youth who had not yet filled the shape of adulthood. The servants moved around the door as if around an altar, silent and careful not to look too long.
At intervals, Monson entered to give instructions. His manner, by all recollections, remained calm. He spoke of transport arrangements, of telegrams, of the coffin that must be ordered from Dunoon before the night made the roads impassable. No one contradicted him. No one asked more than what was safe to ask.
The surgeon from Tyne Bruick arrived late, the smell of wet wool heavy on his coat. He examined what he was permitted to see, a small wound behind the left ear, the edges blackened by powder burn, and confirmed the fiscal's conclusion of an accident. There was to be no further examination. He bowed his head, gave his condolences, and left before the lamps were extinguished.
When the coffin came, a carpenter followed. His hammering began after midnight, slow, deliberate blows that traveled through the floors like distant gunfire. In the upper rooms, the children stirred. The dogs barked once and fell silent.
By early morning, the rain had turned to fine mist. The blinds were still drawn and the house smelt of oil, damp cloth and salt air. The sea beyond Kames lay colourless. The moor seemed to flatten beneath the low sky. At breakfast, few spoke. Agnes Monson remained upstairs, her door closed. The tutor himself sat briefly in the dining room, taking tea without appetite. He asked the butler whether the coffin was ready for conveyance and was told that it was.
Seems pretty buttoned up, all done. Got him in a coffin.
Ship shape.
Yeah.
Ready to go.
Yeah, ready to be shipped out. Say,
Yep.
Well, done. But by 9 o'clock, the undertaker's men arrived with a cart. The plain, unvarnished box was lifted from the gun room and carried through the hall. Servants turned away as it passed, heads bowed. Outside, the horses shifted in the drizzle, steam rising from their flanks. No prayers were said. The wheels sank softly into the wet earth as the cart turned toward the coast road, its sound fading into the fog until only the rain remained.
Inside Ardlamont, the hush was absolute. The officials were gone, the surgeon gone, even the smell of powder fading. Only the damp footprints lingered, a trail from the gun room to the door, ending at the threshold. By nightfall, the house seemed deserted. Yet those who spoke later on of that day remembered one image, the fence at the edge of the wood, slick with rain, the soil disturbed as if it still recalled the fall. In that silence, nature kept its verdict, unspoken, patient, and enduring.
Yeah, pretty buttoned up, all done. Accident.
I'm
Yeah.
skeptical.
You're skeptical. Gun
very skeptical.
in the ground, face down. Oh, back of his left ear.
I mean, back in them days, they're just taking their word for it. I mean,
As a gentleman, you trust him at his word. That's gentleman says something. That's
Well, I wouldn't have done.
He's not up to anything nefarious. What are you talking about? He's a gentleman. Well, for a time after the shot, the official record read like any sporting tragedy. The procurator fiscal, informed on the day of the incident, dispatched an officer who accepted Monson's explanation of an accidental shooting. No immediate suspicion was raised. In the ledger of Victorian accidents, a young man of means killed by his own gun while hunting was neither rare nor scandalous.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, the report itself was only a paragraph long. Ink on thin paper filed among the week's drownings, fires, and farm mishaps. There was no autopsy, no witness cross-examination, no reason to doubt the neatness of the account. In the machinery of Victorian record-keeping, death could be absorbed as quietly as rain into soil.
Well, here we go. The plot thickens. Because within days, that still surface began to tremble. Insurance companies, foremost among them the Scottish Amicable Life Assurance Society, noted that Hambro had been insured for a total of £20,000, which, that's about £3 million today.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, £20,000 was a sum reserved for merchants and magnates, not for 19-year-olds still in education. Clerks at the company's Glasgow office were said to have reread the forms twice, tracing signatures that now looked strangely telling. It's just a bit of insurance. It's nothing suspicious,
Yeah, but, it probably is at his age to be having life insurance at that age for that amount of money.
£20,000.
Yeah,
well,
back then
$3
would have
million.
been a hell of a lot of money.
Yeah.
Well, the coincidence of youth, fortune, and sudden death began to whisper like scandal through the corridors of both commerce and law. These policies were arranged only weeks before his death and made payable in part to Agnes Monson. Such timing could not be dismissed as coincidence. It was an era where suicide and suspected fraud voided a policy, and insurers were alert to patterns of convenience.
Well, Agnes, his friend, she could have got in on some of that.
Well,
that just seems extremely suspicious. There's no getting around it. Everybody's like, well, duh.
Yeah.
But at the time, witness statements from the Ardlamont staff began to reach the authorities. The butler and gamekeeper both described Monson and Scott returning to the house in agitation, cleaning firearms like immediately afterwards, and asserting the accident story before any word had gone to the authorities. These recollections, while cautious, introduced the first suggestion that the narrative of mishap might conceal intent.
But when the death reached police headquarters in Glasgow, senior officers deemed the evidence inconclusive and ordered a formal reinvestigation. The body's treatment raised further concern. Because the initial fiscal inquiry had accepted Monson's account, no post-mortem examination was performed before burial. That omission, common enough in rural accidents, left a gap where doubt soon took hold.
When the body was exhumed and examined by Dr. Joseph Bell, his report noted a single wound behind the left ear, its upward path and powder burns incompatible with an accidental discharge. The finding recast Ardlamont from estate to crime scene.
Ooh. When police returned to the scene, the elements had begun their slow erasure. Rain had softened prints, and the loam gave up little. Yet in the act of recovery, the scraping of mud, the collection of cartridge fragments, the investigation found its first rhythm. Each gesture was reverent, the act of recording what the world had nearly buried.
It's just so close, man, except for that insurance.
I bet they was thinking, fuck! We're
damn
we're going to get found out.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to get that money.
That damn insurance company. If it wasn't for that damn insurance company, we got away with it.
Yeah.
Well, the investigators traced the crowns with notebooks and measuring rods, charting where soil and fern bore silent record of the fall. Each object, the cartridge, the stained cap, the broken stalks, was listed beneath lamplight, evidence replacing hearsay. In the constable's careful script, even the ink seemed to falter, as if uncertain what story it was writing.
Attention then turned to the elusive third man, Edward Scott, whose surname may have been an alias, disappeared soon after the shooting. Letters later traced him to England, but he evaded the Scottish summons. His absence deepened the mystery, a companion gone without statement, a witness unreachable. His name lingered in police reports like a smudge, an outline without substance. Each lead dissolved in distance, a ticket unclaimed, a letter unanswered. It was as if the same mist that hid the shot had swallowed him too.
Seemed pretty convenient. Whoops. Hey man, you need to leave the country. We're in big trouble, my friend. See you later.
I mean, you would think that they would find that suspicious, like, straight away.
Yeah.
Especially if he's not from England.
He sees all that. He's like, peace out, brother. See you later. Send me a bit of that cash when you cash in that life insurance.
Yep, more than likely.
But meanwhile, the press descended on Argyle. Journalists adept at moral drama filled columns with contrast between the dead heir's youth and the tutor's studied manners, the polish of a man born below the rank he imitated. The Glasgow Herald and the Times reprinted insurance details, feeding public unease. Within a fortnight, what had been an accident in estate ledgers became the Ardlamont mystery.
By early September 1893, reports on insurance irregularities, witness recollections, and Scott's disappearance were forwarded to the Lord Advocate's office in Edinburgh. The conclusion was measured but clear. Further inquiry was required. And the man whose calm explanation had first satisfied the fiscal would now be treated as a potential suspect. The shadow over Ardlamont thickened, and with it, the machinery of justice began to turn.
The re-examination of the scene produced little new physical evidence, but one object altered the investigation's course. A bullet fragment recovered near the site, found to be consistent in caliber with the ammunition used by Monson. At the same time, detectives scrutinized Hambro's correspondence and financial papers. Among them were the insurance proposals and receipts, showing the Monsons' connection to proposers and potential beneficiaries. This documentary trail replaced conjecture with inked proof of motive, at least motive sufficient to justify arrest.
Yep.
Got him.
It's definitely on the case.
Yeah.
Well, the turning point came when insurance investigators and Crown prosecutors shared information. Investigators alleged that Monson had sought or proposed similar insurance arrangements for others in his circle, a pattern suggesting familiarity with speculative policies. That finding bridged civil suspicion and criminal inquiry.
By September's end, the warrant was prepared. Alfred John Monson was arrested in Edinburgh and charged with the murder of Windsor Hambro, with subsidiary charges of attempted insurance fraud. The announcement reached London papers within hours, their headlines framing the case as a morality play of greed and betrayal.
Following arrest, Monson was conveyed under guard to Inverary prison. Did I say it?
I think you got it.
Inverary.
Yeah, so he was at the prison for initial examination, huh?
Yeah, but there he maintained the story of an accident, offering no elaboration beyond the account already public. Investigators pursued Edward Scott, issuing circulars through Scottish and English constabularies. Some reports placed him in the north of England, but others on a ship bound for South Africa. But he was never brought before the court. His absence would haunt the proceedings, leaving a human gap at the center of the narrative.
Yeah, like I said, he's just like, see you later, bro. I'm not going to get mixed up. I'm going to go to South Africa or, leave the country.
Yeah.
Said, well, bye-bye.
Obviously, he probably would have had the means, being part of all the gentlemanly.
Yeah. So then it just leaves Monson and his account. He's the only witness. So the press reaction swelled to national obsession. Illustrated papers ran storm-lit sketches of Ardlamont House. Sermons invoked the dangers of worldly speculation. The public meetings debated the morality of life insurance gambling. For Victorian Scotland, the fusion of money, death, and moral decay proved irresistible. The investigation had exhausted its witnesses and its ground. All that remained was circumstantial evidence, and that could still hang a man.
By November 1893, the case had grown from local curiosity to full Crown prosecution. Papers carried notices of the Ardlamont murder, the tutor on trial. The public's tone shifted from speculation to moral condemnation. Monson's name became synonymous with cunning and deceit, yet the evidence remained circumstantial, a web of documents and impressions without a living witness to the shot itself.
So the police had done their work. Now, in the courtroom's vaulted hush, the case passed from inquiry to argument, from the silence of the woods to the theatre of law.
On the 12th of December 1893, under the vaulted ceiling of the High Court of Justiciary in Edinburgh, Alfred John Monson stood arraigned. The Lord Justice Clerk presided. The Lord Advocate led for the Crown, and a press gallery heavy with curiosity lined the benches.
The Crown's case, read loud in careful monotone, unfolded with grim arithmetic. The £20,000 insurance on the youth's life, procured only weeks before the fatal day, the Monsons' names as beneficiaries, and the young man's death, sudden and solitary, in the tutor's company.
The prosecution's opening statement portrayed Monson as both manipulator and opportunist. The Lord Advocate spoke of premeditated financial design, asserting that the accused had contrived the destruction of his pupil that the fruits of assurance might be reaped. Evidence presented included the signed insurance forms, correspondence between Monson and insurance agents, and sworn testimony from officials of the Scottish Amicable Life Assurance Society.
Medical witnesses followed. Dr. James Caird, examining surgeon, and Dr. Joseph Bell of Edinburgh University, who is pretty cool fact here. He is the famed model for Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, they testified on the trajectory of the bullet wound. Their conclusion: the angle of entry behind the left ear was inconsistent with an accidental self-inflicted shot. Powder mark distributed suggested that the weapon had been fired from a distance of several feet, not at point-blank range.
Forensic exhibits, guns, cartridges, a map of the wood were laid out on the bench like relics. Jurors leaned forward as Dr. Bell demonstrated, with pointer and chalkboard, the impossible angle of a self-inflicted wound to the back of the head. Yet, cross-examination revealed uncertainties of Victorian ballistics. The absence of a post-mortem at the time, the lack of preserved tissue, the possibility of ricochet, the defence pressed each ambiguity until doubt hung in the air like smoke.
The defense, led by eminent advocate Edward J. Balfour, countered that the Crown's case rested entirely on circumstance and conjecture. No witness had seen the shot fired. No direct evidence linked Monson to the act. Balfour reminded jurors that the fiscal's original report, made within hours of the event, had accepted the death as accidental. The Crown, he declared, has woven a web out of paper policies and suspicion, not proof. Well, yeah, I can see that. He's doing his job.
Well, you can only go with as much as what you've got.
Yeah.
You know, if there's no hard evidence, I mean, you have to rely on the substantial.
Yeah, the circumstantial
stuff. Yeah. But it's still quite substantial evidence, you know, all the paperwork and stuff. Witnesses for the defence described Monson as a dutiful tutor, the Hambra as an inexperienced with firearms, an accident plausible in the ordinary hazards of sport. Character testimonies from acquaintances in England and Argyll spoke of an honourable man beset by misunderstanding.
And then, of course, you've got the missing man. Edward Scott shadowed every exchange. The Crown conceded his absence but emphasized his role in corroborating Monson's timeline. The defense suggested his disappearance proved nothing sinister, only fear of publicity.
Through 9 days of testimony, the mood oscillated between moral outrage and forensic fatigue. Monson remained impassive, hands clasped, eyes lowered, the image of composure that spectators alternately admired and distrusted.
On the 23rd of December, 1893, after deliberating for just over an hour, well, that reminds me of old Buck Ruxton again. He had 90 minutes. Well, the jury returned a verdict of not proven. Scotland's middle ground between conviction and acquittal. It meant that guilt had not been established beyond doubt, But innocence was not fully affirmed. In effect, Monson was a free man shadowed by implication.
The clerk read the verdict of not proven. Monson bowed slightly, expression unchanged. The Lord Justice Clerk then formally announced that the charge was not proven, and with that, the court adjourned. Outside, public reaction split along moral lines. The press printed parallel headlines: "The tutor acquitted" and "Murder unpunished." Crowds gathered at Waverley Station to glimpse the man whose composure had defied both accusation and sentiment. In letters to editors, correspondents debated whether the Scottish verdict was mercy or failure.
In coffee houses and drawing rooms, the verdict was weighed like theology. Clergymen preached on conscience. Editors wrote of providence and deceit. Even in remote parishes, the name Ardlamont came to stand for the limits of proof and the chill of doubt. The Crown, however, had not quite finished with him yet. Although acquitted of murder, Monson faced indictments for conspiracy and fraud arising from the same insurance dealings. In March 1894, at the Central Criminal Court in London, he was tried and convicted for defrauding insurance companies through false proposals, a charge independent of the homicide. He was sentenced to 5 years imprisonment with hard labour.
Well, reports from that trial revealed a pattern that the Scottish court had only hinted at. Monson had insured multiple acquaintances for large sums, each policy bearing his or his wife's name as beneficiary. The jury required less persuasion this time. The evidence was written, dated, and mathematical. "The web of deceit," wrote the Times, "which the murder court left untorn, has now been laid bare."
Well, in prison, Monson maintained his innocence of murder, but admitted errors in finance. Yeah, insuring your friends and family for insurance and possibly going to bump them off.
Very big errors.
That's just an error in finance. Just, what are you talking about? I'm all right. But after he was released from serving his term, he lived quietly in England under the shadow of the verdict that had never really cleared him. The phrase "not proven" clung to his name like damp wool, a verdict neither forgiven nor forgotten.
The Ardlamont case left legal ripples wider than its verdict. It revived debate over the not proven system, prompting editorials in the Scotsman and parliamentary discussion about its ambiguity. Critics claimed that it let the guilty go free. Defenders saw it as a safeguard against miscarriages of justice in cases built on inference.
In the formal sense, sentencing ended with Monson's English conviction. In the moral sense, it never did. The court had given no gallows and no rope, only a perpetual pause, a sentence suspended in public opinion. The hunting field at Ardlamont lay quiet again, but its silence was no longer innocent.
Well, beneath the oak beams of the High Court where the verdict was spoken, the echo lingered. Not proven became both shield and epitaph, and the man who walked free would forever remain inside that narrow corridor between doubt and guilt.
Well, in London, the verdict of the court did not still the whispers. Alfred Monson's name lingered in the public imagination. When Madame Tussauds unveiled a new figure in their Chamber of Horrors, they placed his likeness among the murderers. The wax effigy stood immaculate, gloves folded, gaze serene, but its company damned him.
I didn't think that the Madame Tussauds went back that far.
They've been around a long time.
Interesting. Well, Monson, affronted, took the matter to law. His claim was not that words had slandered him, but that meaning itself had done so. The law called it libel by innuendo, defamation implied by circumstance rather than statement. To display his figure among the condemned, he argued, was to declare his guilt without saying so.
In 1894, the Queen's Bench agreed, in part. The judges held that the wax figure, silent though it was, could still carry defamation implication. They awarded him 1 farthing in damages, the smallest coin of the realm, a mere quarter of a pre-decimal penny, a token victory, more mockery than redemption. Monson v. Tussauds entered the law books, a curious meeting of waxwork and reputation.
Got rewarded quite a bit of money there, the 1 farthing.
That is quite a windfall right there. Here's a decimal point of a fucking penny. Here you go, bud. Get out of here.
It's like, why did you even bother bringing it to court? Well, Alfred John Monson, released from English custody in the late 1890s, lived quietly under assumed respectability. Records suggest that he died around 1908 in England, his name seldom appearing in print after the insurance conviction.
His wife, Agnes Monson, once beneficiary of contested policies, which I believe she was probably in on, but we'll never know. She survived him by several years, her life spent far from the scandal's reach. And the third man, the elusive Edward Scott. He was never located. His identity and fate remain unverified. He said, peace out, brother. I'm fucking off to South Africa. Good luck.
Going anywhere but here.
Yep.
Well, the Hambro family withdrew from public comment. Windsor Hambro was interred in St. Catherine's Churchyard in Fentnor of the Isle of Wight, a marble headstone marking the youth's end.
Culturally, the story endured in shadow. The Illustrated Police News and the Victorian penny press transformed the sober courtroom into Gothic scenes, the tutor as the tempter, and the pupil as the sacrificial innocence, the wood as the altar. In the popular imagination, the Ardlamont murder remained unsolved, its verdict a ghostly refrain. Oh, they solved it. They just couldn't
really fully prove it, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the substantial evidence was still quite substantial, you know.
Well, when you have the doctor that's the archetype for Sherlock Holmes in Arthur Conan Doyle's books, he was one of the guys that was, the forensics. And if he couldn't do it, couldn't prove it, well.
What can you do? In the wider moral climate of the late Victorian Britain, the affair joined a litany of cautionary tales where education met exploitation and financial speculation blurred into sin. The quiet moors of Argyll, once merely a sporting landscape, acquired the aura of myth. Travellers were said to remark that the woods of Ardlamont hear only one shot.
Thus, the legacy of the case is not judgment but uncertainty. It stands as a parable of modernity unsettling moral order, law confronting motive, science testing chance, and faith in class eroded by greed. The verdict not proven remains its final echo, but in Scotland that echo has now faded. The Victims, Witnesses, and Justice Reform Act of 2025 abolished the old three-verdict system, and with it the ambiguity of not proven. The act received royal assent on the 30th of October 2025, leaving only guilty and not guilty for future trials. A modern certainty laid over an ancient doubt. That's, they just passed that.
Yeah, I mean,
that's crazy.
Happened so long ago, but it's took till 2025 to just be like, well, we can't do not proven, not this, not that, It's either you're guilty or not guilty. Madness.
Yeah, I mean, they were debating it back then and going, is this good or not? And then it's still, 130 years?
It takes them to make a decision.
So, I don't know about this. Let's talk about it for the next 130 years or whatever.
Well, let's set it aside. We'll leave it 50 years. We'll come back to it, have a little, conversation, see where the mood's at. Well, in that mist, where 3 men set out and only 2 returned, Scotland learned again that justice, just like the heather, seldom grows in straight lines.
Well, that was the Ardlamont mystery. Not much of a mystery, I think, because the fucker did it.
I mean, obviously there is a bit of mystery, but I think, everything in a human's psyche is pointing to he did it. Yep. It's hardly undeniable, to be fair. But then again, was it him or was it Edward Scott?
Yeah, but why would Monson go, oh. But exactly. The forensic guy said it was the same caliber as his gun that Monson was carrying.
Yeah,
so.
But it wouldn't be Edward Scott because he's got no motive, whereas the tutor obviously has.
Yeah. Yeah, insuring him for £20,000 or $3 million. You're like, well, you got financial motive. That's one of the biggest ones that, you going to make some money off from this?
Oh, yeah, it's one of the top motives, obviously. It's money. What else is it?
Love, greed.
That's it. Yeah.
Crazy.
Well, it's a pretty interesting little case, though, that.
Yeah. It just shows, like, how they did things differently. And also, like, I think it's kind of mirrors a little bit of, like, stuff now. Like, if you go to a trial, like a murder trial, and they don't have DNA, you're like, well, you ain't got DNA, so whatever. It's so ingrained now that people expect, it's because of TV and movies.
Irrefutable sort of evidence, really.
It's like, oh, we got his DNA, we got him, but not every case is like that.
Yeah.
And it's not going to have DNA.
It will rely on just substantial evidence, so.
Yeah. And then also they had, like, the ballistics back then, and you're just like, how did people really understand? Do we even really, like, as laymen's, do we really understand ballistics as much as someone, back then?
Wow.
Crazy.
Interesting case.
Hell yeah. Can't wait. Can't wait till next week.
Yeah, super excited. Well, anyway, thanks for listening, guys. If you enjoyed, please give us a follow. Also, a like, a comment. Give us some comments of what you think about the case. Give us a 5-star rating as well. That would help us and help others to find us within the whole algorithm. You can find us at Murder Most British on Instagram and TikTok, and MMB Podcast on Facebook.
So we also have a link tree for everywhere you can follow us down below. So until next week, stay safe, stay curious.
Take care.